Coming up next on the Holistic Wealth Podcast.
Unpaid caregiving in the United States is valued at $600 billion annually. And that's more than the entire global cosmetics industry. And yet this massive contribution to our world's survival is hidden, it's undervalued, and it's unaccounted for. 40% of caregivers end up quitting their jobs altogether to provide this necessary care. And that's more workers leaving the workforce than the entire global airline industry employs.
You're listening to the Holistic Wealth Podcast with host Keisha Blair, author of Holistic Wealth and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And now, here's your host, Keisha Blair.
Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast, and I'm your host, Keisha Blair, and today we have another great solo episode, and we're talking about life after caregiving and reclaiming purpose and wealth. Now, this is a follow-up episode to a previous episode just released a few weeks ago on reaching 1 billion with Holistic Wealth, caregiving, and the sandwich generation. A listener reached out to me personally, and we've been getting so many DMs and emails on that episode. And I just wanted to take a minute to just address this issue, to address listeners, and to just go through some other important points. And so before I do that, just a reminder that the Holistic Wealth Podcast is sponsored by the Institute on Holistic Wealth. And you can visit the Institute's website for a range of courses and resources. And the Institute's website is www.instituteonholisticwealth.com. And of course, you can also visit my website. It's www.keishablair.com. That also has other courses and resources available. And I'll go through some of these as it pertains to this episode, which is so important today. Now, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in and continuing to share and sending me your thoughts on episodes. So, as I said, a listener reached out to me, and I've been getting several emails and DMs from previous caregivers, from people who've lost loved ones, from people who have walked this journey. And I've been so heartened from that because, as you know, I lost my dad recently, just a couple of months ago, and I've walked the caregiving journey myself. And, you know, as the founder of the Global Holistic Wealth Movement, I feel like it's necessary to address this issue just a little bit more. And especially as we're still celebrating that milestone of surpassing 120 million people worldwide, as I mentioned in 2 episodes ago. You can check out that episode as well. So our listener shared that she had cared for her mother for 14 years. So 14 years of love, devotion, and sacrifice before her mother passed away. And now that her mother is gone, she feels not only burnt out, but she feels like she needs a recovery program to set her on a path again in terms of her life. And I totally, completely, honestly get that, because when you get up every single day and caring for one person or caring for 2 people, you know, your life is structured around that. Everything else is periphery. When you've done that for something like 14 years, and then it comes to an abrupt end, it feels like you're at sea. It feels like you don't know what direction to turn. It feels like your life has been upended. And it's a difficult, very difficult journey already to lose someone you love. But when you've given up a career, when you've given up your life, your livelihood, to care for someone that you so love, and you're fighting the good fight with them, fighting that battle every day, it really is hard. So her story is heartbreaking, but it's universal. And if you're listening today, you might recognize yourself in her words like I did. But here's the reality. Unpaid caregiving, let's start with just the United States. Unpaid caregiving in the United States is valued at $600 billion annually. And that's more than the entire global cosmetics industry, which was worth $430 billion just last year. So if you can imagine that, that's huge. So caregiving, mostly invisible and unpaid, is worth more than every lipstick, every foundation, and luxury fragrance combined. It's huge. Now, it's like an invisible economy. And if you know me well, you know I love these stats. I love when stats tell the story. I'm a trained economist, and I love these eye-popping bold stats. And so it's like a whole invisible economy out there, caregiving. So if we were to go globally, worldwide, unpaid caregiving is estimated to be worth over $10 trillion every year. So let me put that into perspective. It's bigger than the entire global tech industry combined, which is larger than Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon put together. And yet this massive contribution to our world's survival is hidden, it's undervalued, and it's unaccounted for. And as a trained economist, I'm just in awe of this. And I know everyone listening in must be like, well, how come this isn't talked about? It's unbelievable that it's not discussed enough in terms of how vital this is, in terms of the cost to caregivers in their time, in their careers, in their finances, in their mental and emotional health, in their holistic wealth. So the average caregiver spends more than 20 hours a week providing care. And that's the equivalent of holding a part-time job, except this job is unpaid and it's invisible and not valued. And here's the shocking part. 40% of caregivers end up quitting their jobs altogether to provide this necessary care. And that's more workers leaving the workforce than the entire global airline industry employs. Think about that. So we know about the Air Canada strike that took place. If you're in Canada, or if you've been seeing the news internationally, we know about the Air Canada strike. And so when you think about 40% of caregivers quitting their jobs to provide care, think about how that's more than the entire global airline industry. It's mind-boggling. And so let's talk about the gender tax. We talk about and we hear about the pink tax for women all the time, but who shoulders the bulk of this responsibility? Well, it's women. 60 to 70% of caregivers are women. So there's a hidden gender tax larger than the global fashion industry, which is valued at $1.7 trillion. So women are paying this tax in lost income, lost retirement savings, and lost career opportunities, while the world stands aside and benefits from this, and it's not spoken about enough. And so if we go back to the US for a moment, that $600 billion in unpaid caregiving labor is almost the same size as the entire United States healthcare industry. But the cruel irony is most caregivers don't even get proper healthcare coverage themselves. They sacrifice their health to care for someone else's. And so there's a global human toll, because 1 in 5 adults is currently an unpaid caregiver. So that's more people than the entire population of the European Union providing care right now. So this isn't just an individual burden, it's a global crisis of invisibility. And so it's unbelievable if you are in this situation. You are transitioning out of a life-altering setback. It could be the loss of a loved one, the loss of a spouse, grief, a divorce, a career crisis, a midlife crisis. Just know that this Holistic Wealth framework is the guide that you need to pivot and to transition and to set your life back on a path to prosperity, back to a path of purpose. It's one of the reasons why I created the Art of Recovery from Disruption coaching program that's on the website. It was at the forefront of my mind while writing Holistic Wealth itself, because that was as a result of tragedy and grief. So after years, sometimes after decades of giving care, caregivers need strategies for recovery. And if you weren't a caregiver or you have never been, but you need strategies for recovery because sometimes it's just burnout from a career, a midlife crisis, you might need those strategies. And it's unbelievable what taking the time to really care for your needs can do. So if you are in that position right now and you're listening in and you're feeling 100% completely depleted, please take the time that you need. Take a time to pause and assess where you are right now. There's a Holistic Wealth Reset Checklist. It's free. It's on the Global Holistic Wealth Day website under resources. I'll put the link in this episode. It's a free Holistic Wealth Reset Checklist. And that checklist is there for anyone who needs a reset. And if you're at that point right now where you need a reset, check it out. And also check out that Art of Recovery from Disruption coaching program, where I do provide one-on-one coaching that's tailored to your needs, that's suited to you, because that needs to be completely unique to your situation. You need to rebuild your identity. You need space to recover from burnout, rediscover joy, creativity, and purpose. And yes, you need financial healing too. I'm sure after caregiving and with the finances involved in that day to day, I can't imagine what people are going through. This needs a lot of work, a lot of effort to basically set your life back on a path, on a trajectory where you can heal and move forward and prosper. And if some of you are thinking, you know what, I need a complete break. I need to take a sabbatical. I need to go somewhere else and chill out for a bit. I know exactly how that feels. And there's a sabbatical chapter in Holistic Wealth, an expanded book that talks about my life transforming sabbatical. And that is something I also coach people in, because for many, a sabbatical is part of that healing. And in my sabbatical coaching program, I help people design time away, intentional restorative breaks to reset after burnout or disruptions. Because whether it's caregiving, a divorce, or death, grief, most people often feel purposeless. And that transition is one of the hardest moments in life. And it's actually a crucial point where you have to make the right decisions to set your life back on a path to healing. So if you're listening right now and you've been in the trenches of whether it's caregiving or a crisis of any sort, I want you to know this. Your labor has value. You have value. You are utterly loved and significant, and what you have done is amazing. Your sacrifices are immeasurable, and your future, your holistic wealth matters. It's time to shift, though, from survival into recovery and to reclaim your identity, your purpose, and your wealth. So please do, if you're listening in, email me if you need to. I love hearing from listeners. And if you have questions, there's a discovery call available on my website, or even before that, if you need to reach out by email, it's info@KeishaBlair.com. And I just want to put in a word here that the German edition of Holistic Wealth was recently released and is doing well. And if you know anyone across the EU can order the book, and it's available everywhere online and in bookstores. So get your copy of that if you're listening in from Europe, from anywhere else in Germany, Denmark, Switzerland, wherever. Get your copy of the book. And thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Holistic Wealth Podcast. If it resonates, as I said, share it with a friend, share it with your network. And just remember, you are not alone. You are more than your role as caregiver, your role as we straddle so many different roles in our lives. And so, again, you are immeasurable, and what you have done is amazing. Thank you so much for joining me this week, everyone. Have a great week. Love you all. Take care until next week.
The Holistic Wealth Podcast with Keisha Blair is brought to you by... Have you joined the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Choose your membership plan at the Institute on Holistic Wealth/memberships to join. As a member, you'll get access to free worksheets, advice, coaching, and an intentional design workshop. As you start to live a more holistically wealthy lifestyle, you'll want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth/memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning best-selling Holistic Wealth 36 Life Lessons to help you recover from disruption, find your life purpose, and achieve financial freedom.